Hello world, how is everybody? Can you hear me all right? Um, Welcome to Silver Bullets, well Tim El Gator, and we had someone else visit. Thou shalt not be named, not necessary. Good evening, JR. Let's crack on. It took me ages to try and find a song. It took me equally ages to try and find a picture to follow afterwards, but now. Yeah, might not be one of the better songs, but nevertheless, let's get it started. All right, unmute myself. Yeah, we don't necessarily need to be discussing who it is that came here. Starve them, let them, let them rot in the corner. Let's get rid of that, and then my screen is adjusting itself. Sorry for the muttering. A little bit tired. Been a bit of a long week. And okay, so I wasn't gonna title this stream with this title. I was gonna just simply call it step by step, or bit by bit, or piece by piece, or brick by brick, or something like that. And it's just gonna be a general chit chat, really. But I don't know. I was reminded of Star Wars, and there's this channel called Bad Lip Reading. There was a song called Bushes of Love, and in the chorus it sort of goes like, hopefully I won't get a copyright strike, but like trying to remember the lyrics. I know you want someone to hold you, and then it comes the chorus, but we all got a chicken duck woman thing waiting for us. Every day I worry all day. And I thought, it's a brilliant song. It's hilarious. I need to, yeah. So Bad Lip Reading is a channel, and the song is called Bushes of Love. And I just couldn't, resist using that as a title for the street. So we've gone total detour from just a general kind of chit chat. I mean, so at the end of January, I got my tax return filed away, and I renewed my TV license. So that's like ticking things off the to-do list, and getting that kind of headache out of the way. Next will be to get the car serviced. But in between that, like, I've been editing a video, a collaboration that was done ages ago with Black Pill on steroids. It was over a 3-hour long stream. I've managed to whittle it down to like an hour, and it's been a painstakingly long edit, nitpicking away, trying to condense it down, adding subtitles to it, and that's more or less done now. I'll render it probably tomorrow and then be uploading it sort of as soon as possible. And we're getting closer to the school's half term. There's been a few extra school trips. There's been a teacher strike going on in the UK, so things they're not really on a to-do list, but things have been happening, keeping me occupied. And I don't know, at the same time, I've been finding things humorous as well, trying to have a good time, not to let it get to you. You've got to be able to have a bit of a laugh. Hopefully it's not a sign of imminent doom, like a psychotic, like manic laughter as the world burns, hysteria. So we're gonna have to like wing it, in terms of, pun intended, ducks and chicken, wing it with this stream. Very, very impromptu. I've got nothing prepared for it, but we'll make it work. So the chicken duck woman thing is waiting for each and every one of you. You already kind of know this anyway, and it's been said already before, that as society and the world is struggling to get by and collapsing more and more, then the desperation, the re cometh. So they'll be, be vigilant, and they'll be there. They'll be there waiting for you, and probably each and every one of you. You never know. So be on your guard. And it will end up being this sort of woman thing, because the way of contorting perception, image, appearance, and to manipulate in order to try and secure you. I think in the song they talk about, it could be this woman thing creature could be hiding in the bushes. You never know, any day now. And that's the thing, because complacency, neglect, vulnerability, you won't see it coming. Throw in a bit of like love bombing or unsolicited attention, and you won't realize until it's already too late, kind of thing. And whether or not you respond appropriately is the real question. So what that would mean is that there's nothing really there to stop them trying their luck. It's not like you can really go no contact in a way and be invulnerable to these women things trying their luck with you. And so you need to be more mindful of your own emotional vulnerabilities, tendencies, emotional state, your regulation, your situational awareness, because they're going to try a multi-pronged angle of attack. You know, it's like if this doesn't work, then they'll try something else. And they're very crafty. You know, they've had evolution on their side, down to like they could be wearing a fragrance and you don't even realize that you're being swayed purely by aroma. Like, or they may twiddle with their hair, you know, give you like the butterfly flashes of their eyelashes or something like that. It reminds me of that scene in Gremlins 2 with the female gremlin sort of batting her eyelids. You never know. It could be a combination of these things. It could also be by proxy. Who else has come on in? I see D-Man, Iridium Kush, Chaos for You. It's good to see everyone. So, and Penguin. If anyone, I feel, I can open up the panel if you want to add in some annotations to this subject matter. I have a feeling with the way the societal situation is progressing, this dysfunctional, distorted aspect is becoming more clunky. I suspect the sophistication of the manipulation will slowly start to deteriorate. They'll be more impatient as well. So that might be something to look out for going forward into the future. Like this, they want to cut to the chase, they're persistent, and they're overly dramatic, maybe more histrionic in that sense, more theatrical. Because bear in mind that they are also competing amongst themselves to win your attention and affection and resources, etc., which is going to be hilarious to watch. You know, mud wrestling. What will come afterwards, I'm not too sure. Maybe a sort of starvation, I suppose. They'll start to wither away, I guess. Maybe turn to other forms of supply to try and compensate lower grade supply. And we'll probably start seeing it will start to take its toll. We'll probably see an increase in victimhood. So I think the virtue signaling aspect is kind of getting more overly used in modern, like with social justice issues. You know, save the planet, save the animals, save the trees, save the plastic, save all this. It's like yeah, this is getting too much now. So I think it's getting a bit worn out, this virtue signaling, but I think that will start to transform into a more unicorn style, where it's like never mind the communal narcissism style of prestige. They'll become more selfishly like, well, I'm a high grade woman, or I'm a high level or caliber. I'm a womanly woman, sort of thing. And we've seen elements of this beginning to take shape, with these women now becoming red pilled and talking of traditional values. So the wording, the spell binding, we're gonna have to develop further. I think we're pretty well developed. You know, we can read between lines, and we can spot BS when we can kind of hear it. But I think just keeping up with the Joneses in a way, you know, keeping up pace, that to be mindful and remember that Well, I suppose not only are you listening for the words, but you're wanting to hear where is the intention, the motivation. What do you want? You know, what do you want from me? Why are you talking to me of all people? It must be something you want. Um, and there'll probably be a lot of insinuation because a nice sort of tactic, a manipulator of that sort of background or whatever is they take advantage of you inferring meaning, because then you derive the conclusion, or you derive the understanding. So that's turning you against yourself. So watch out for that. Watch out for them trying to put self-doubt into you and second guess or second think in a way where you no longer trust your own sensibilities. And by doing that, you become more reliant on them telling you what time of day it is. That's a very precarious situation to find yourself in, because now you're being conditioned to become a codependent. We already see on a societal level, they're trying to do that. They're trying to make people become codependent. And once you're in that predicament, you can't really leave, because your lifeline is you're connected to it, and it becomes harder for you to escape. Which in part is why they don't like MGTOW and the red pill philosophy and men banding together, because of the inaccessibility to extract from you. Because remember, at the end of the day, as much as they want to do a song and dance and pretend they're a butterfly and woo you, they still have needs that need to be met and satisfied. You know, they still got the thirst, which is in part why they're desperate and seeking out and looking for people they can get from. But the pool of potential victims is forever getting smaller and weaker. Now, it's not really it's somewhat of a criticism of these spaces. I don't really want to make it sound like a criticism. It's just something to be wary of. Is they wouldn't be coming here if they didn't think they had a chance, or they could push their luck. Before any of the guys were in here, we already had one immediately who had the audacity to think they can just stroll on in and I'm going to tolerate it. So as much as we can sort of tell them to F off and put these boundaries in place, the mere fact that they're coming here in their mind tells us that they see us as vulnerable. That they're informing us that there is weakness within these communities, and it could be things like we're processing a lot of emotions in these spaces. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of people who have been on the receiving end of abuse. So that makes, to some extent, makes you susceptible, because if you've been abused once already and you're gathering around with other people who might have been abused, or whatever, so these various ways that someone could be vulnerable, or even in terms of something maybe that might seem mundane, like you come here for company, for friendship, for comrades, because you lived a life in your own head thinking like, am I the only one that sees the world the way I do? And then you find other people, like-minded people, and you're like, oh my God, I'm not alone. That's a potential vulnerability. And you mix this all together, and we have a, like, we have to kind of be honest here. We have a very active, I don't know how you want to describe it, like an there's high energy in spaces like this. Even someone who's just simply curious would probably be quite intrigued stumbling by a community such as the ones that we share and occupy. So we shouldn't be surprised that they come here, but we should also have a bit of like reflection, like what is it they see beneficial, loitering around here. They wouldn't be here if they didn't think they can get something. So what is it they're after? And to say simply like, oh, it must be attention, maybe that's a bit too simplistic. They're looking for a bit more, something a bit more particular. Oh, JR, wait, let me highlight that comment. I saw my name, so it kind of caught my attention. So JR says, Billy, you're going to play that Bushes of Love again? I don't know, I might get a copyright strike, but, the channel is called Bad Lip Reading, and the song is called Bushes of Love, and it's Star Wars. And maybe I'll drop it. Well, I'll leave a comment. Right, hold on. Type. My keyboard is getting a bit old. Buttons are sticking. So making me blush. Thank you, D-Man, for doing that. You didn't have to, but thank you. Just seeing, is there any particular comments that I need to sort of address? Yeah. Okay. Anyone want me to put a StreamYard thingamajig link in there? I'll do it anyway. If what's his name? Russ Shackelford, I think that's the surname. If he's around, if you're listening, it would be nice if you could pop. I can pin things. It would be nice if Russ Shackelford could jump on the panel, because some people think he is a troll account, but I'm pretty confident he is not. I'm pretty confident that he is he's formerly known as Truth Anchor. So going back to task about the chicken duck woman thing, abomination, and why would we say a chicken, like this mutated hybrid crossbreed thing, because they're that messed up now. It's no longer just like I've got a crazy poodle, stalking me or something like that. No, now it's like this amalgamation of disorders and characteristics, a freakazoid, which makes it, I don't know, am I being mean? Makes it funny. Yeah, it's kind of like it's like a new game. It's like spot the disorder, place your bets. What kind of malfunction has this person got? Is it a dent in the fender? Is it a bad transmission? Are the gears grinding? I think there's a power steering leak There's oil all over the driveway. You know. And at what point is it going to be like, nah, this needs to be written off and sent to the junkyard and recycled into a fridge? That's probably what would be best for. I mean, okay, JR, yeah. So although this topic is very much suitable for such an entity, as she likes to call herself, let's try. I'm not going to be strict about it, you know, but like we don't let's keep it more on topic based rather than you know, because you're doing her an honor when you leave comments like that. She's like, even if it's you know, having a little dig or whatever, it's still, it's like, oh, JR's talk, he remembers me. We have a guest.
Hey, what's up? How's it going,
Hello,
Billy?
William Gush. How you doing? I'm just adjusting myself a little bit.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, man. I see you're going to be doing a stream in a little while. So
Yeah, probably well past your bedtime, I'm sure.
yeah, it will be.
Yeah, and I have a video premiering in a couple of hours here as well. Actually, in about an hour as well. But I just came upstairs here just to ask you a question. You wanted me to be Professor Iridium. So when did you want to do that?
Well, firstly, if you, I don't know if the title Professor Iridium is fine by you. So, or however it is you want to be addressed, let me know. You seem to be more aware of my time than I am of your time. So I don't know what time have you got right now? Like it's nearly
So it's
20
so
past midnight.
you are. It is
20,
probably what, quarter after midnight where you are.
yeah.
So yeah, you're 5 hours ahead. I know it very well. I work
Okay.
with the French, so the French are an hour ahead of you guys. So I
Right.
know that time difference all too well.
I mean, well, tomorrow's the weekend. I'm available all day. So anytime really, I suppose, when it's good for
Yeah,
you.
this weekend's going to be bad for me because I'm
Okay.
doing streaming and stuff like that. And unfortunately, next week is bad for me because I got a money making Monday stream on Monday night, and then I'm going to be out of town on business travel in out of state here for the rest of the week, and I won't be back
Right.
until the following weekend. So, yeah, I'm not sure really what you have in mind to like in terms of levels of. Well, I'm not sure how old your daughter is. I don't know. We could discuss this on Discord. We don't have to discuss this here, obviously.
Well, in terms of the time schedule, I don't know, it might be a bit of a cop out, but I think whenever is best for you, really.
Okay.
We're generally quite flexible, you know, apart from her going to school, then we got free time basically, late afternoon, evenings, and then the weekends.
Gotcha.
And I don't think it'll be for very long because her attention span, she'll probably be too mesmerized to really know what's going on. Just too excited to see someone on the computer.
Yeah. I promise you, I will not partake.
And the thing is, like, you ask what kind of level, I don't really even know myself because the school doesn't really tell me.
Oh, for God's sakes, don't tell me this.
So I have to kind of gauge things for myself. But she seems to be able to like pick up terminology. I don't know. Like,
Well, maybe
she's 9, but maybe 8.
I'll ask her what she knows, and I'll roll with that.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, she's quite into her planets. She likes astrology. They're different sort of
I can
things.
talk about astronomy all day too, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I can talk math, astronomy, physics, all that good stuff.
yeah, like I'm not too sure what to say. Like it could be a case of having to sort of gauge it on the fly, on the
Yeah,
spot, because I'm not
that's
sure what
that's
kind of
what I.
mood,
We're saying the same thing. Yep.
you know. Um, and just sort of simple. It doesn't even, I say simple, but I don't know. Like to you, that might still be like, oh yeah, particle accelerator. Yeah, simple stuff. I'm like, no.
Well, I'm not going to talk to her about iridium and other precious metal organometallic complexes used in the biopharm industry. No, I'm not going to be talking about that stuff.
I did tell her that iridium is the meteorite that killed the dinosaurs. So,
Yep.
but to her, it's like
Today it's the thought killer.
Yeah.
So
I mean, she's got an idea of like she's currently doing, I think, solid liquids and gases.
Okay.
So she kind of understands like water being the main example. As a gas would be like steam, as a solid would be like ice, and as a liquid is water. So she can kind of just about wrap her head around that. So maybe you could just expand a little bit on those sort of parts.
Yeah.
I try and tell her like steam with steam, you got like steam train. Steam is hot, steam. If you've got steam in a container, it's kind of additional pressure push it
Just
out.
explain to her that it's the same thing, just in a different form at a different temperature. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I did say like at one point like H2O. So I was saying like just remember hydrogen, remember like oxygen, and you'll sound impressive. But she doesn't understand what do you do with hydrogen? What do you do with oxygen? Like she doesn't really. I don't think she understands like particles and the bonds.
Gotcha. No, you give me some sense of grade level, but like I said, I can ask you. So I just don't want to go. I don't want to go asking probing questions about your daughter here in front of the world. So I'll just ask you some questions in Discord, and that'll give me a better idea as well. How to gauge my reactions and whatnot. So yeah, but happy to. Maybe I'm thinking maybe sometime next weekend could be maybe next Saturday could be a time frame for that kind of thing. Just thinking off the cuff, do something like that.
I mean, whenever.
So like late afternoon. So maybe like early afternoon for me. It'd be late afternoon, evening for you. I don't know what your daughter's bedtime is. That kind of thing.
She's pretty late when it comes to bed. I think her autism keeps her up because her brain is just constantly like the neurons are just firing nonstop. And the later it gets in the night, the more the brain is determined to stay awake.
Okay.
I don't even know why. It's just like the brain is just like fireworks going off in her head.
I mean, I typically survive on about 5 hours of sleep a night myself. So that's just the nature of this beast. I don't know why. I'm able to do it. That's why I travel well, and all those good things. So I wasn't even paying the closest attention. What were you talking about here?
I'm not even too sure myself. It was going to be a random stream, but I just couldn't resist not using this title. So it's like, all right, now I think I'm going to have to make a topic out of this title. So it's like, all right, beware of the chicken duck woman thing that is waiting for you.
Well, I mean, I just re-streamed the video of the chicken duck woman thing encounter I had a month
Yeah.
ago with Femme Sapien. I mean, I'd call that a chicken duck woman thing encounter.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a creature we've all already sort of got experience, first-hand
Mhm.
experience at that. Um, and for some of us, they're currently going through that experience, I suppose. But I don't know. It's just a bit of a reminder, a bit of a be vigilant, be cautious, because you never know. She could be waiting for you behind that next bush.
Yeah. One of the things I told the guy I interviewed um, Wednesday earlier this week is be very careful in the workplace.
Oh, right.
Very,
Yeah.
very careful in the workplace with
Yeah. Yeah.
the 304s because I have found through experience the ones that wear the suits are the most dangerous of them all. When I see a stripper, I know what their intentions are. You see a professional in a suit, you have no idea what their intentions are, but assume they're bad. Assume that they're out to screw you. Just assume
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. 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 I think workplaces are already a danger field because if it's a college, like you're kind of stuck there, and you might have to like work with them. Um, I'm finding with the school, they're very socialist. So you got that kind of socialism aspect. It's all like SJW, follow the politics, group identity, gender identity, racism topics, and save the planet. So it's all kind of, uh, well, vomiting. You can imagine how it is.
Diarrhea out the mouth, basically.
Pretty much, and they don't really understand what they're talking about inclusivity all the time, and we need to.
Diarrhea out the mouth. Yeah.
Right, yeah. What I find irritating is then they'll have the sort of cheek to say, "Hey, we want to boost the children's self-esteem, and we want to try." It's like
The
the
last
sunlight,
thing
the
modern children
rainbow.
need is more boosting of their self-esteem.
Well, they want to build their confidence up, and I'm just thinking, this is if you don't know what you're doing, this is dangerous.
A few kicks in the head with a dodgeball has built my confidence up.
I'm worried that they're going to instill false confidence, so that these kids just go around throwing caution to the wind and start gambling because
Yeah.
why think of the risks if you just are confident? You
Yeah,
just have a
it's like
blasé attitude.
an old commercial I saw years ago about drinking and driving. They showed a video game and a crash. And they showed a real life crash where a person died and gets
Mm,
taken off in a stretcher. And the comment at the end is, in real life, you don't get another quarter to play the game.
no, and it's interesting you brought up drinking because you just reminded me. What do they say about one of the kind of funny things they say about drink? It's like courage drink, isn't it, or confidence? A shot of
Liquid
confidence,
courage.
liquid courage. That's right. Yeah. So it's like, oh my god, so we're going to get the kids pissed.
Yeah.
No.
Well, the problem with alcohol is it makes you think you are okay to do something when you're absolutely not able to do something.
Exactly.
And I can tell you, marijuana does not make you do something. When I get feeling marijuana, I'm like, F it, man. I don't want to go anywhere.
I suppose what we're saying
Like,
in a
are you
way here
kidding me? I don't want
is,
to go anywhere. I don't want to drive anywhere. What the fuck?
yeah, I
I
suppose
mean,
we're kind of,
your brain listens. I mean, your brain listens to you. Your brain's telling you, man, I'm fucked up. I ain't going nowhere. Whereas alcohol would tell you, nah, I'm okay to drive when you're really quite fucked up.
well, that's the thing. I mean, because it's messing around with your senses, and that's tying in with your interpretation of the world. So how are you going to um, align or coordinate yourself properly if you're all wonky in the head, or whatever? Like, I'm thinking of when the police, what do they call that? The sobriety test. Yeah. But
Oh yeah, I love the commercials. They used to have a commercial here around Christmas and New Year's many years ago, where they would have a cop pull over a guy, and then he'd open the door, and then in one of them it would be like a big bunch of martini came out of the car, and you'd see the olives come out, and you see the guy driving. He's like floating in the martini, and he's eating the olives as he's driving. The point of the commercial is to make it that you think you're fooling the cops. It's like so obvious. And then there was another scene where the cops pull over a guy in a motorcycle helmet, and his helmet's full of beer, and the cop goes, "Have you been drinking tonight?" And he goes,
What do you think? Have you heard that they say driving whilst tired is just as bad, or it's the same as drinking and driving? Do you agree with that? I suppose.
Allegedly, I would tell you that allegedly I would, if I had my drizzards, I would sooner drive high than I would drunk. In all very seriousness, if I had my drizzards, if I am a bullet to my head, and if I had a choice, if you have to drive high or you have to drive drunk, I would choose high every single time.
Yeah. I mean, back in the day, I was driving around, and there'd be plenty of times I was kind of stoned, if I'm honest.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. Can we quickly just welcome on Truth Anchor?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Truth Anchor. Good to see you.
Hey, gentlemen. I just came in to say that Russ Shackelford guy, he is yours truly. So no need to worry about that. That's just Susan doing Susan stuff to me.
There you go, everyone.
Gotcha.
It is a guy.
So I'm going to hop off and let you guys resume where you're at.
Okay.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Well, thank you for coming on here.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by. So,
Yeah.
actually, Billy, Billy, I am going to hop off here because I've got some more content work I got to do. I'll just jump back in the chat.
Sure.
But it's as always a pleasure, and yeah, we'll plan on something for next Saturday, and we'll talk about it in Discord.
Thank you so much. I'm forever in your debt for doing this for my daughter and I. So huge appreciation, and it's going to make a massive difference, I think, for her.
No problem. Always willing to help. All right. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. So as some of you guys might have gathered, and I think what me and Kush are arranging, if you kind of gather what was being said there, is it's one of the benefits, obviously, of being friends and making contact, by being nice to each other, kind of thing, and helping each other out, and we can offer our insights and services and help and things like this to better for the benefit of other people. So it's a huge appreciation. He doesn't need to do this, but it's very kind of him for doing so. And it just, what I'm trying to say is that it shows that there's a lot more to men, to Manosphere, to MGTOWs, to Red Pill, to however you want to call it, whatever sort of community it is. There's more to us than what we might normally be discussing on streams and showing the world. We are people at the end. We're not just like avatars on a computer. There are actually like real lives attached or intertwined within this, and as such, life is like, people might talk about their health, people might talk about their finances, people might talk about their emotional state, they might talk about their living situation, and it just shows the more compassionate side of, because we know that society doesn't really like people here. We're kind of shunned and mistreated and things like this, So despite some of the more serious matters, it's nice that we're not forgetting that as people we still have real world life life situations and problems or things that take our attention, or we could be devoted towards, or whatever. So I think it's a great thing, and yeah, I can't thank Iridium enough for doing it. And it was also good that Truth Anchor popped up on the panel. So we got a clarification. Some of you were like, hey, this might be a woman, this might be a sock account or something like that. But we got a verification that so Truth Anchor is Russ Shackelford. Oh, and Russ, as such, I'm going to give you a wrench. Oh, I don't know if you guys know this. It looks like YouTube might have updated their. I can select managing moderator or a standard moderator. I don't know what a managing moderator is, but have a look at that. So, yeah, we won't be streaming. I don't know. I'm just waffling on, basically. I don't even. The chicken duck woman thing. And I wanted to throw in there while we were talking about the kids that because disorder likes to spread and taint the next generation to pass on yeah sure the K-Plan, you have a wrench too. They want to pass on, inherit the dysfunction. That means, unfortunately, we'll be having ducklings, little ducklings, little chicken duckling things. It's getting silly. Oh, we have a troublemaker here. Who's this? It's GM.
What's happening, Billy?
Not much. Just being a bit silly tonight, I think. I'm a bit bored. Got nothing to do. Need a distraction.
Oh,
It's been a while since I've done a stream.
Yeah, it has.
Well, I've pretty much finished editing, condensing a over 3 hour long stream down to about an hour, and it's been mental gymnastic, headache, annoying. So I guess in a little way I'm kind of like celebrating a bit. Like, yeah, it's out of the way. So I'm ticking things off my to-do list.
Edit, like take out some of the stuff that was said.
Yeah, I don't want to spill the beans. It was focused on a particular topic, but as topics, as streams go, it kind of goes off the track.
Yeah.
So I decided, and I didn't want to have to upload a over 3 hour long stream to my channel because God knows how big the file would be. So I was like, right, I'm going to edit this down and take out absolutely as much as I can and keep it on topic. So I'm pretty pleased I managed to cut out 2 hours worth of filler.
Wow.
I mean, it wasn't like just nonsense. I'm not saying like filler as in like it had no significance or importance. It just wasn't on the topic that the stream was meant to be based on.
Get it. Hey, Billy, so what is this chicken duck woman thing? I missed it. I just woke up.
Okay. All right. Well, it's the chorus from a song. So the song is called Bushes of Love. It's on a channel called Bad Lip Reading.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny.
Okay. I'll check it out.
And I think it's meant to be a kind of like, if you feel the sort of, it's meant to be like a sort of love song. It's a mushy kind of sort of, emotional kind of song. But the lyrics, I think, are actually they're quite MGTOW in a way. It's sort of like warning you of this creature, the chicken duck woman thing,
Mhm.
and how it could be how there is one waiting for you, and it could be waiting for you behind that bush, so it could come out from anywhere. And it's because it's using Star Wars. The way they've edited it, it's Obi-Wan telling Luke this story, this cautionary tale, like beware of this chicken duck woman thing. Because like the song starts with like 40. It's hard to sort of say the lyrics without trying to sing it, but 49 times. 49 times. We fought that beast. It was a chicken head. It had a chicken head and duck feet.
And it was a turkey vulture.
But it goes on to and it killed your father. It ripped his face off. His blood poured into the boards. We had to change them. And Luke is going, "Oh wow, cool!" And he's like, "No, it's not cool, son. this thing is slaughtered your father or whatever."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me of something.
I've been in the goofy mood, like it kind of. This is all Cushion and Kate Plan's fault. I hold them two accountable because they were talking about Star Wars, and that kind of, it's like Star Wars. I don't know why it just popped in my head and just reminded me of that song. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that song, and I looked it back up and I was like, oh yeah, that's how it goes. And I was like, yeah. So it kind of the song got stuck in my head again. And they've got other Star Wars. There's a song called like My Stick. And they've got a few other Star Wars bad lip reading. They're all pretty funny. I would love to play it here on the stream, but obviously, like for fair use and copyright protection, it'll probably be a problem.
I think you can play it. You just have to speed it up a little bit to avoid that. Like do the 1.25 or whatever.
All right. Well, I don't know. I linked it in my community tab. So if you go to my community tab, you'll see a link for it there.
All right. I will check it out. I just popped on to say hi.
Yeah.
It's good to see you streaming. Yeah.
Yeah. On the spur of the moment.
Good. Well, don't let me interrupt what your flow is.
This is the most unprofessional stream I've got on my channel, so don't worry about it. Like I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Kush said his stream is going to be a thought analysis.
Thought analysis. Yes. Yeah. We're going to need to capture one of these creatures and put them in a petri dish for dissection.
Yes.
It's been a long time since me and you have done a dissection, actually.
I know. Well, there's been a new one lurking around the space, Billy.
I'm getting a bit worried of how much. I mean, you've kind of touched on this contagious aspect of the mind virus infecting men.
Yes.
So I'm a little bit concerned with some of the guys who could be suffering from a bit of radiation exposure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, even like myself, like with a daughter, she's coming home like ponies and princesses and fairies, and I'm just like, oh my god, my life is going going to hell. I was talking to Lord Sauce about he made this analogy about life being like a TV remote control,
Uh-huh.
and I thought that was kind of interesting. I was like, so I kind of took the ball and ran with it. And I was just like, yeah, like it's got a whole lot of buttons that people don't know what they're for. And he responded with, well, people kind of fight for the remote control, and you can end up being along for the ride, watching someone else's life on the screen in a way. And I was like, yeah, it reminds me of I'm always fighting for the remote with my kid, and my kid wins, you know. So I pay the TV license. It technically it's my TV, yeah. But she's taken over, and now I'm a grown man watching kids' cartoons, and I'm just thinking, oh my god, what does this mean? What's the symbology here? Like my life is a cartoon. No. Yeah.
Well, I don't have any advice there because I've spent the past, 18 years or so watching anime with my son. So whatever he wants to watch is what I watch.
Yeah, the remote control of life. Yeah.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
as
as long as it's good. I
True.
mean, it's got to be good.
So against your, now I don't know if it's like against your wishes or against your will, but I suppose as a result, you now know some anime stuff.
Oh yeah, all of
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't know other if it wasn't for your son, you wouldn't have known it.
Right. Which it's like I think about what else could we have watched. I mean, I look on, Netflix and stuff, and there's really not a lot that's good anyway. I don't know.
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, but in terms of this topic is that being conditioned, like contagion, being conditioned, being exposed
Yeah.
subtly, and through no fault of our own, like it happens. You pick things, like just like how my kid will come home and like there's a friend of hers in school that goes around saying, oh my god, oh my god. So I've got my kid coming home going, oh my god, and I'm just thinking, shut up.
They are little puppets, aren't they?
It drives me mad.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. As far as the kids go, I feel like that's easier than what goes on in the spaces online.
I mean, to some extent, it's a natural thing, like even in a healthy society, healthy dynamic, there's mirroring. There are mirror neurons in your brain. You pick up.
Well, think about what you used to say when you were younger to sound cool.
Can't remember. I used to piss my brother. There was an episode of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the cartoon, right?
Mm.
I can still remember it to this day. Like there was this. Was it? I'm sure it was Turtles, but it was a human kid. I think the Turtles were like visiting this kid, or he was part of the storyline. And right at the end, just before they kind of had the closing credits, this kid says, "Do you want ketchup or mayonnaise?" And for some reason, that really annoyed my brother. So I used to go around saying ketchup or mayonnaise.
Mm. So think about that when the kids saying, "Oh my God."
No, but that one's what that's just.
It's funny.
Oh my god!
Mm. Oh yes, Tim Elgato, Naruto, Sword Art Online are two of many we've watched over over a decade. God, Naruto was so long. I actually shed tears when Purdy Sage died too. It was such a sad moment.
Yeah, I'm from the 90s era of anime, which is like 18 plus, like Akira, Fist of the North Star, stuff that wouldn't really be suitable for my little one.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the kind of because now you've got this sort of it's not really it's like Americanized anime. I don't know, like Pokemon or Digimon, or it's this kind of blend of the Japanese style, and they've taken elements of things like Power Rangers, I suppose, where I'm sure there must be a term for it, where they, you know when like they say it's morphin time, and then you get a cut sequence of the components being put together, or they got their costume being put on, or their weapons are being like they're being armed or whatever. So it's like a whole bunch of cut sequences, and it's the same. Like quite often the same kind of. They just use the same sequences in different episodes, so it kind of saves them the animation cost. But I hate that sort of that stuff because it's pumping in that addiction, adrenaline, repetition. Like if you take those repeated cutscenes out, there isn't really much per episode. Like some of the thing is like I don't know. Do you know what is it called? Go Jetters. I don't know. It might be like a UK cartoon. That's like it's a computer animation. And the thing is, early morning cartoons. Each episode is only like 10 minutes long.
And then most of it's just cutscenes.
And then there's a good portion of it, at least, that are cutscenes. Yeah.
Oh.
Like Go Jetters is a little bit like Thunderbirds. It doesn't look anything like Thunderbird, but in terms of structure, where you've got like a team of rescuers, there's a crisis going on somewhere in the world, so the team have to now cut sequence, get their gear on, and off they go. They save the day, and then it kind of wraps up the story of like it tries to be a little bit like, what do we learn from this story?
Yeah.
There's nothing inherently like evil about this TV show. It's not bad, I suppose, but it's just a little bit lazy, and unfortunately has that kind of we must make everything extravagant or basically extravagant. They have the kind of lots of effects and bright colors, and everywhere is like stars flying around. It's just like I'm on LSD.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of the really busy ones. Like the animes that have the yelling in it, I just
Yeah. I see that a lot more with YouTube. Now, this is something I get annoyed with, and every time I catch her, I'm like, what are you doing? But she'll find these YouTubers, like they're gamers, I suppose, the majority of them, and they cannot regulate their emotions at all. So they're just constantly like, it's not quite shouting, but their voices are elevated. They're just pumped. They're kind of, I'm not even too sure if they're truly excited, but they kind of come across as if they are.
Yeah.
So they're constantly, as they're playing their game, they're given a bit of a commentary, and they're just pointing out, like, it's just like, dude, just shut the hell up. You're just jabbering away at absolutely every little aspect of this game you're playing at a high octane level. And I just think to my kid, like, what the hell is this doing to her?
Right. Yeah, it does have an effect. I mean, it has to.
I mean, I catch her. She now is beginning to learn how to mutter to herself. I'll go up to her and I'll be like, "Who are you talking to?" She's like, "Oh, no, nothing." And I'm sure she's picked that up from another. It's another gaming channel, but there's two young girls. I think one's called Janet and the other one's called Kate, and it's split screen, but the way they've kind of positioned their screen, like you can see these young girls, like the webcam is on them, but they put them next to each other, so it looks like they're back to back. So I don't know if they are back to back, but because they're muttering to each other, like, "Oh, what's this? Oh, yeah. Well, we go over there. Oh, ooh, what's this? Okay. Oh, look, I got the golden goblet or whatever. Oh, yeah, well done. All right." They're just nattering away, and not really conversing, but they're back to back as well. Now they got compared in terms of like the pitch level, they're much more kind of chilled. They're more softly spoken, but it
But they
almost
still never shut up.
they don't shut up, and they don't really talk about anything. It's just like muttering commentary, semi conversation, like that they are listening to each other and responding, but at the same time they're trying to play a game together. So I suppose their attention is a bit drawn away, but it comes across as if they're schizophrenic.
Yeah, kids are they're gonna do what they see.
And it's an easy one, like for my kid who has trouble understanding, when it comes to seeing a channel with peers of a similar age to her, and they're playing something like a game, that's easy for her to wrap her head around rather than trying to follow an actual program.
Yeah.
You know, and now she's developed a kind of, because her attention span is so poor, I call it a button, like her finger is got a mind of its own and can never rest. It's always like she'll be watching something while scrolling up and down trying to find another video, so she can't sit still. I'm tempted to like tie her up or something, but a restless finger that just forever is active, just poking, looking for something to press.
Yeah.
So I suppose that might be like ADHD or something then at that point. But...
Yeah,
maybe detox her.
Well, I just have to take the whole thing. I can't.
Yeah.
It gets to a point where it's like until I learn how to install parental controls on the device or something like this, I'm finding it better just to full-blown boycott it and just like, no, you're not getting it at all.
Yeah.
Welcome to the real world.
Yeah. Yeah, you can have it back when you get a job.
And then I
And
can talk about, like, in my day, there wasn't even a,
yeah.
electricity wasn't invented.
Well, Billy, I need to get ready for work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to touch base with you soon though. Learned some funny stuff
Yeah. I
last
feel
night.
weird, like you're on my channel this time instead of me.
I know. I know. I know it. That's why I had to come up and say hi. 'Cause, you hardly ever stream.
Wow. Oh, well, particularly like the last few weeks, because I had like my tax return and some, real life stuff to take care of. So
Hmm.
I haven't been on much. Now, I wasn't that regular before either, but
Right.
I figure I better do a stream before a search party is organized and people are wondering, what the hell is he?
Right. Well, and I know people appreciate it.
Well, and I appreciate everyone popping by as well. It's still like amazing. It's like there's people that listen to me.
Hmm.
I can't believe it. Like there's 14 people here apparently right now, and I'm thinking, what the hell?
Yeah, it's weird. That you attract people that like to hang out with each other and chat.
Yeah,
I think it's a good thing.
and it's the other you got to kind of find a good time spot or whatever because people, the clashes of the streams.
Mm. Lawrence. Ridiculous. I don't think Alice cares about you anymore, Lawrence. I don't know. I haven't checked. I haven't done my perimeter check today. So I did a short little stream earlier and tagged a bunch of these crazy bitches. All right, Billy. Well,
have fun at work. I'm sure it'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I will talk to you later, okay?
Okay, take care. Hope it goes by effortlessly.
I'll still be listening in the chat though.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Yeah. So what are people doing in the chat? Oh, think about it. Good to see you too. Did you have a different name before? But yeah. This has been the most free-flowing stream I've ever done, at least on my channel. It's completely disorganized. I shall make a mental note not to be so impulsive. Oh my god! I've been impulsive, and that is why it's been a bit of a blunder this evening. So I suppose I could have just pulled like a rabbit out of the hat in a way. Maybe I can offer out some subject titles and see which ones grab your attention. So that kind of ties in actually to this. conversation. Actually, damn it, I could have used this. So, a subject title idea. Why do toxic people want to exacerbate and cause trouble or chaos? Something like that, you know. So it's one thing, like they want the drama, they want the attention, but I'm talking about, yeah, but why do they want to put fuel on the fire? Why do they want to accelerate it, to really magnify the anarchy, the carnage? So that's one topic. Maybe you might want to, we can go over at some point. I've got another one here that I've just labeled as breaking rules, which I think would be more, well, once I get my edited video uploaded, which should be in the next couple of days, then having a topic on breaking the rules will be more, it would partner with that better, because it kind of I think it will be more beneficial. Guess
Hey,
who's
Billy.
back? Hey there, Truth Anchor. Good to see you back.
So you got my attention. I am highly interested why narcissistic people love to stir crap up, and if you deny them narcissistic supply, seems like they get itchy or mad.
Well, do you want quick answers or do you want long long answers? A quick answer would be, well, they get mad because they're entitled, and they're already, you know, we talk about gaslighting. I don't know if you know, they're angry kind of thing. Well, they are already pre-ignited before they do their gaslight. I mean, gaslight. I'm talking about it in the sense of the rage, not really in the sense of distorting your reality. But in terms of being angry at you, you know, like reeing or just being boomtastic or whatever, you got to bear in mind that's like the froth is boiling over the pot. I mean, they were already boiling underneath the surface. It's just you didn't see it. So it's not really going from 0 to 100. They're already at like 70. So it's not much of a step to go from 70 to 100.
Fascinating. So they're already primed to displace other issues onto a innocent victim.
That's a much better way of putting it. Yes.
Okay, so is there anything you can do to diffuse that situation? I guess not, because the situation isn't related to you.
You can get your popcorn ready and wait for it to happen. And just don't be in the way when it happens. To defuse it, well, so you could bend the knee in a way, give in to their demands, and try and pacify them. I mean, in some ways, this is what codependents do, you know. So the narcissist or people of that sort of ilk would like to use intimidation. And a good example of this will be something like they may have a meltdown, you know, a complete catastrophic tantrum, hysterical, as a sort of to teach you a lesson. So it's like, you better not piss me off going forward, otherwise look what's going to happen. You're going to be responsible for my meltdown.
Fascinating. So I'm wanting to make a video about hyenas, and hyenas are a rather unique mammal because the females are in charge. It's a matriarchy. And one thing I noticed is the females, they have to bitch, for lack of a better term, at the males to emasculate them, and they keep them chronically stressed, so it inhibits their growth. So by default, the females are actually bigger. And I noticed with female narcissists, that's what they're all about, is emasculating men.
Yeah. Thou shalt not have a spine. You're not allowed to sort of get too big for your britches or whatever. Yeah, they got to keep you under the thumb, under the heel. They got to keep control of you. They can't have you being empowered. So that'll be done over time, with subtly, and like look how many times men fear. They say it in a joking way, like, "Oh, don't piss off the wife," or like, "Oh, I'm scared to go home tonight." They say it kind of like half-heartedly, as if it's humorous. But what does it really say? It shows you that they are being terrorized. Even that Will Smith, Jada Pinkett thing. If you understand that he got up because his wife gave him a look, she just had to give him a quick little flash of the eye daggers at him, and no word needed to be said, and he knew the message, which is like, crikey, I gotta go on stage and slap Chris Rock in it. So it could be used in a multiple of ways, not just to emasculate the man, but it can also be used to get him to carry out her orders.
Yes, I've seen that. Like I told people that behind every successful man is a supporting, submissive woman, and behind every weak, broken man is an out of control woman.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, we got so many. Like, have you heard of? I saw this as a placard. It was in like the manager's office, and it's like, "I'm the boss," and then in smaller writing underneath, "because my wife lets me," or something, or "my wife allows me to be." So it's a joke, but it's it's got that dark humor about it, I suppose. It's like, who's really the boss? Is it the man, or is it because the wife said so? It's allowed him to be the boss. So it's the woman. But he's allowed to believe he is in charge if it serves the purpose. But at the end of the day, between them two, like they, without having to communicate it in such words, they know who wears the trousers in a relationship.
so this is fascinating to me because I mix in psychology and the intricate system, which I consider spirituality, and I tell people like it's an abomination for women to be matriarchs because they're not spiritually or intricately suited to handle the stress. They have 1/20th the testosterone, so they get overwhelmed, and one of their coping mechanisms is anger and rage. So whenever you put a woman in a situation that she's not equipped for, she is chronically stressed and chronically coping with anger and rage. So is that at all ringing a bell, or would you agree with that?
You could ask a question like, why, out of all the ways of dealing with a situation or a problem, why is it the solution, like problem solving? Why is it the answer seems to be with these people anger and rage? I mean, aren't there other ways of dealing with your problems? So, what is it about anger and rage that comes so quickly? Well, that's partly why it is the solution, is because anger and rage is a quick response to problems. Like, I think so. Survivalistic back in premortal times, then if there was a saber-toothed tiger and you were about to kill you, one of the ways you could defend yourself would be to use anger, scream at the tiger, or make yourself look big, or get aggressive. And so we can see that the reason why, one of the large reasons why they are so angry and so aggressive and kind of like violent, that is coming from that sort of energy, is this is their survival instincts taking over. They're becoming animalistic in that sense. They're not really like you would think that a human, an adult who's had time to mature, who has a well-developed brain, who wasn't so impulsive, would be able to think of other solutions to deal with a problem. But for these people, they don't have any other. The only solution they have to a problem is to get angry at it. So they've got no problem solving skills, and they will just use this anger, this aggression for most. If I can't get my way, I'll have a tantrum. What is tantrum? A tantrum is passive aggressive. Oh, I'm going to pout. That's passive aggressive. Oh, I'm going to give you the silent treatment. Again, passive aggressive. So these are all forms of aggression, and that's how they deal with their life problems and situations, with aggression. If I can't get what I want, I'll have to be angry.
I have noticed that, like, these women that act like they're the boss of everyone around them. Like, if you ever tell them no, they get angrier. If you tell them no again, they get even angrier. And it's like they assert dominance in their imaginary hierarchy by being a out of control, verbally abusive person.
Yeah, and you see that kind of escalation, because it's like they hear a no. That's not solving their problem. So they think, well, I'm just going to add extra. I'm just going to shout louder then. Instead of like taking on board that, this ain't going to get me what I want. I need to maybe do something different. Because
shout out to, sorry,
go ahead.
I was just shouting out to GM. She's saying that women should not be in male roles. And I got to confirm that. It seems like women that love and respect go hand in hand. So if they don't look up to a man, I don't think a woman can love the man. So instead of a woman trying to lead the man, I think they would be much happier being in more submissive, supportive roles.
What's kind of transpiring now is they are in a paradoxal situation, because what you just said makes a logical sense. However, we're not dealing really with a logical person. We're dealing with emotionally dysregulated people. So even though taking a more submissive position would probably actually be more satisfying in the long run and rewarding, in their mind, this is feeling inferior. So a lot of these problems come from a place of low self-esteem. So they don't like who they are. So they aggrandize them. They make themselves bigger. And this is where that entitlement skyrockets through the roof. And their demands are astronomically absurd. Like they don't just want to have money. They want to be the richest one on the planet. And even then, that wouldn't satisfy them. So they're insatiable. There's no regulation, moderation there. There's no cutoff or limit. And they can't really explain this to them. They can't rationalize this. Or if you were to ask them, well, why is it you can't be satisfied? Why is it you want more money than you could even spend? They wouldn't be able to give you a proper answer. It would be like a flippant, like, just because I want it, it'd be like, that's not an answer, like, just because I'm entitled to it or whatever. So they really are suffering at their own. Now I say suffering not in a sympathetic way. They've kind of the life choices that they've made has cut off these avenues of actual growth into like maturation and maturity. So they're becoming more and more petulant instead.
They fanned their own hell.
They're basically they got what they deserve. They did it to themselves, really. And as a result of this dichotomous way of looking at things, where inside they feel absolutely ultra low self-esteem, they absolutely hate themselves, but that's being contrasted with oh, I am the greatest of the great and most wonderful, beautiful thing on the planet. And these two different messages don't align with each other. So it's kind of like the pendulum. This is where they get their black and white thinking from. One minute they're miserable, like they're absolutely miserably sobbing and woe is me, I'm the worst, I'm the biggest victim of them all. And then at the same time, there's like, but I'm super important and I'm the most unique and special of everyone. If only the world knew how significant I am. And it doesn't. Again, it's not making logical sense. But this is why they can't. This is also a little bit of slave morality, where they dig into the victimhood, and this creates a sense of being special. So that means they're now superior in a way. So being a victim is a superpower. It grants you privilege, and people will make allowances for you, and you're not held accountable or have to be responsible, and everyone has to be catered to your feelings. So being a victim, especially in society and media, is very popular. Everyone's oppressed kind of thing. So it's a superpower. So this goes to their head. Now they think they're gods. But as soon as they go into that position of superiority, it's like now, because if you're a leader, if you're the top of the creme de la creme, that has responsibility with it. It has accountability with it. You got to actually have some worth to be in that position. So as soon as they're like ping pong ball. They're bouncing from victimhood to superiority in a blink of an eye, backwards and forwards. Because as soon as they're superior, it's like, I've got to be a victim again. I can't actually be a proper empress or whatever. So you see how it's that, and this is in part as well why they're so unstable, and their emotions are fluctuating backwards and forwards. And you can see how can anyone be happy with a situation like that? So there's a lot of inner hate as well going on.
I mean, yeah, I see that. So here's the problem, though. A lot of these women, they're wanting to go in management roles, and they're being gifted that, not on merit, just gifted, which means they're probably not equipped for the task or the situation. And on top of that, they have 120th the testosterone. But let's just say somehow they cope, somehow they deal with it. Well, the proper role of a woman is to be hypersensitive, to be in touch with her family and her children. So now she's being desensitized by these high stress situations. So even if she can succeed, she's going to screw her kids up by being desensitized and not nurturing or caring to them.
Not just desensitized, but she's also becoming addicted. So she's becoming used to this unstable, crazy way of looking at life and themselves. And in part, it's like a self-inflicted delusion, because for all this to sort of start making sense to them, they would have to be deluded. They would have to start seeing things in a distorted way and push reality aside, because the fantasy can't exist if reality is telling them it's not real.
And the other thing I came across was like I really had a conversation with my wife, like, be more submissive. I'll take care of all the hard stuff. And she learned the hard way because she was trying to help me do some business stuff that overwhelmed her. And I just hugged her and said, "I love you, but you're in my lane, honey. Let me take care of this." And since that day, she's been far more submissive, pushing off the man stuff on me. And she's happier. She treats me better. I'm happier. I treat her better. And it's just a better relationship. And it is more traditional. I don't know why everybody just thinks that's the worst thing in the world these days.
Yeah, I think media in part, because they kind of try and make the word submissive sound as if it's like oppression and slavery, and that's not really the case. Like typically when when men are asking for women to be submissive, we're asking them to stop being so combative with us, like to turn things into a competition. Because think of like wrestling, when you got a pin, someone's got to submit to lose, or for for the other person to win. So submission kind of equates as losing, if you use that kind of analogy. But this isn't really what. Maybe it's something that we need to sort of emphasize a bit more in spaces like this, where we're looking for a team player, not someone to have a competition with. And that's the trouble with someone who is struggling in life, and they're becoming more survivalistic in their mindset. Life starts looking like a competition. It's like a dog eat dog world at that point. So it's like, well, if I'm going to survive, I'm going to have to be competitive so that I'm higher up on the pecking order, so I'm not going to be preyed upon. I'm going to be the one doing the hunting. And that's not a good way. It works in terms of survivalism if we were in that day and age, but it's not going to work well in a household, because husband and wife are going to be fighting with one another instead of trying to build together. So it's kind of like you need to have I suppose, to resolve the situation better, you need to have whoever is having the problem is having a sense of a lack in their security. They don't feel secure. And this is what's perpetuating this now competitive mindset. So to be competitive is bringing a false sense of security. It's like, if I can beat you, then I'm going to, in theory, I'll be secure. I'll be the victor. I'll be the winner. I'm safe now if I beat you. If I lose, I'm in jeopardy. So if we can, I don't want to say convince, but if we can reassure the other person, like when we say submissive, we're actually trying to create a better sense of actual security for you, instead of seeing it as if your life is in jeopardy.
Yeah, I really get that. I really do. So to me, it's back to the hyena thing, the lions. So the lions are patriarchal, and even though the males rule, they're not mean to the females. But when the hyenas, the females are take on that matriarchal role, they are incredibly cruel and abusive to the males. And I notice with me, the more submissive my wife is, the more I sacrifice and give her what she wants. So am I the leader? What I say goes. Yes, that's true, but she gets what she wants probably 10 times more than what I do, just because I feel happy giving it to her.
Yeah. And the more secure you are in yourself, the fairer and more compassionate and more understanding you can be. Because when you can reassure yourself that your life isn't in peril, that things are, generally secure. I mean, it's not going to be 100% guaranteed, like life isn't like that. But I mean, you could trust in yourself. This is why, like, you're not going to be able to trust anyone else if you can't first trust yourself. You can't love someone else if you don't have love for yourself first. You're not going to be able to see anyone else if you don't have a sense of self yourself. So it starts to illustrate a deficit of character, that there are issues in the sort of like in the cracks. There are issues that are compounding together, and the way people behave is how they figure is like a coping strategy. Like, if I feel a bit insecure, well, then I'm going to have to be a bit more aggressive or something like that. If I don't trust anyone because I can't trust myself, then how do I defend against this problem? Well, then I'm going to start accusing you and blaming you. I'm going to be hypersensitive and hypervigilant because I can't trust my surroundings.
Well, this is really good stuff.
This isn't justifying their behavior. It doesn't mean that, now that we understand why they're so aggressive, and now we understand why they blame people, and now we understand why they transfer responsibility, it doesn't get them off the hook. It just means we can sort of basically just have a better understanding.
So this is really good stuff, Billy. I got to ask the question, are you that good, or what are the other psychologists around the world not doing? Because this seems like it's really needed and it should be far more popular than what it is.
There are plenty of good psychologists. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just at best what you'd call like an armchair psychologist, I suppose, or a wannabe psychologist. That's a fun one. That's a fun way of putting it. I think what I have to my advantage is the time to sit down and put some of these ideas together. I think it's pretty clear that I spend a lot of time just thinking to myself. So this is the opportunity. This platform and these streams, etc., is like a result of most of my life having these sort of thoughts to myself and never really being able to express them.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me being paranoid, but I think there's a conspiracy where the people, the nihilistic cabal, secret society, I think they want us to fight with one another and be dysfunctional because that makes us far more easier to dominate and control.
That's one part of the reasoning, definitely. But there are, I mean, you don't, there are other explanations, but in a sense, you don't really necessarily need them. It's on one hand, it's kind of good to delve into the rabbit hole and look at the complexities and seeing how all these things kind of affect one another. But at the same time, I tend to try and I'll go off on like long talks and then I'll kind of summarize it in a sort of couple of sentences and just be like, yeah, it all kind of comes from poor parenting, or it comes from low self-esteem. So what we're describing are just the one of multiple ways that this core issue problem can end up manifesting. Like, think of the magma underneath the Earth's surface. There's a whole lot of magma surrounding the Earth, but where it pops through the surface like a volcano, it's not quite random. I mean, you can look at tectonic plates or whatever, but that pressure it releases and out comes the lava. So you can speculate. You could be like, well, we've got a cluster of volcanoes over here, and we've got a cluster of volcanoes over there. Why do we have these volcanoes? And it's like, well, and why not in other places? It's like, well, it doesn't really matter. The point is that you got volcanoes. The point is that society has issues. It doesn't really matter where this is vomiting out, because where it's vomiting out is beneath the surface. It's all coming from the same sort of place. A poor structure of a sense of self. There's a survival aspect in there with it. If you want to be a bit hippy dippy about it, you can say like there's a lack of love because the child wasn't loved properly when they were younger. There's a lot of this is childhood upbringing, so the parenting thing, and it's all in that kind of same. This is the construction. This is how a human or an individual is in terms of being healthy. Like, these would be the things you would consider in terms of a healthy upbringing. Well, that's where the problem is that it wasn't a healthy upbringing.
But I agree with all that. But if you think about self actualization, once you realize what you want to do and you realize how to manipulate an environment to make others what you want them to become, I see how there is a conspiracy in that. And I feel that like whenever I write to politicians saying no fault divorce is abusive to men and to children, I feel that resistance about how someone's telling them, leave it there, it's sacred to us, ignore this. If you was to say that about anything else, you would at least get a response. But the things that make people narcissists are sacred to the people that rule our society, or so I believe. But I get what you're saying. You're looking more on an individual level with what can you do in,
Well,
in your sphere.
yeah. So not the well. I mean, I think we can agree that the narcissism has been left unchecked, so it's gone rampant. Um, but like, if you took it in, narcissism is quite beneficial in terms of commerce and business and management. A lot of company leaders are fit the criteria for a psychopath. So, but it's all well and good if it can be contained. But when it runs rampant and goes unchecked and is being cultivated, where now society is like, hey, you should be like this tyrant of a manager as well. Like, you go, girl, you could be a boss babe or whatever. Then we can't all be alpha, apex, whatever, predator, whatever. You can't all be lions, because then there's no sheep left.
Well, I have to agree with you. I think in the short term, narcissists do very good in an economy, in a business, in a corporation. But I think that's like a satanic good to where long term it's going to have a negative effect. Like there, and I would say there is narcissism obviously in the family, but a little bit more hidden is the narcissism in corporations. And I can tell you, like, if this continues on for another decade or two, corporations in the West might literally become plantations where the people are very close, could be considered slaves rather than workers.
They would like that very much so. However, there is a built-in mechanism. If we were indeed talking about like flat out straight narcissism, it is described as self-defeating, self-destructive. Most of these disorders are actually self-destructive. So I don't know why they limit saying that to just narcissists. But so no matter what they try and do, because they're trying to circumvent being like authentic and genuine and doing the right thing, they're trying to structure society. Notice how they are not very original. They're not very creative. They're not creators. They're destroyers. So they don't build a new world. What they do is they take the existing world. They take you and I's hard work, and they mutate it. They corrupt it. They infect it. They mangle it, and then they call this a creation, the new world order. So whatever, and basically what this is this is their fantasy, which has been overlaid on top of reality. But whatever kind of world they create is reliant on the bedrock of reality to support it. And it works the same way with interpersonal relationships, where as much as the abuser wants to exploit and use their victims as like a parasite, they're sucking the blood. If they suck out all the blood, they kill their target, they kill their victim. So as much as they might like to think of themselves as winning, they are heavily dependent. They can't really be in these positions of power if there isn't people there feeding or fueling them to do so. And that is why, in terms of like the literature, the victims of narcissists are considered as fuel or supply. We're not people. We're not even cattle. We're gasoline. We're just fueling the monster. But there's only a finite amount of fuel available, and even if you were trying to output to the max, there comes a point where you as a victim become so dysfunctional, trying to you end up sacrificing your life for the narcissist. It's never enough, because unless the narcissist can be self-sustaining, they will forever be reliant on someone to look up to wipe their backside for them.
Yeah,
And
I like that.
This is the problem that society is now having, where you've got all these elites, and the only reason why we have these elites is because the sheeple people are allowing it to happen.
Well, that thing you said about how they're not creative, they have to infect something like a virus. I mean, that's a very good description of demonic entities. And I tell people, just having a business, having a property that I rent out, like I know there's a good way to do this and a bad way. And that's why I'm telling people these corporations are absolutely cancerous to our society. But the problem is, in the past, bad companies would eventually get too greedy, the customers would get mad, and they would bankrupt them. But the problem with the modern trust and monopolies is they're going to sink our society. They're not going to be able to go bankrupt.
No, you're right. Like, well, that's kind of like, if I'm going down, then I'm going to take you down with me. So you've got that spiteful element there, and it almost doesn't really, like, as long as I can kill you off, then even if I die in the process, I'll die happy, because at least I denied you any chance of happiness. So that vindictive, horrible kind of spite, bitterness, where they have no real self, despite having this survivalistic kind of desperation of self-preservation, they don't really have any proper self-care. They don't really look after themselves, because they're maladaptive, and they're irresponsible, and they're immature, and things like that. They don't know what's good for them, and they're self-destructive. So I mean, is self-harming. So they do things like they're reckless and things like that. But as long as you don't get to see the light of day, as long as they can steal your sunshine, then as far as they're concerned, this is success in their life. They can die peacefully. It's a horrible way of going about things, but from their point of view, that's a preferred outcome. And usually, whenever they try and do something, you'll start to notice that there's always a multiple. What's the best way of saying it? A multiple benefit from. They don't just do something for one particular purpose and reason, or that's their goal. It's like a two-prong benefit. So if I'm putting you down, that's one benefit. But at the same time, like, if I'm stepping on you and I'm elevating myself, that's another benefit. So I go up and you go down. There's two different benefits out of that situation.
Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I think the word you're looking for is ulterior motive.
Ulterior motive. Yeah, well, it could be an ulterior motive, be that as it may. But there's usually a double whammy minimum of, like, let's say like they were applying for a job. And I think, great. Like, most people would be happy they got a job. But this person would be like, oh, this is good. I'm gonna have a job. So ding ding, that's 1 point. And I can steal from the workplace. Ding ding. Oh, and I'll also make contacts and I can exploit them. So there's 3 benefits from getting a job. You know, so it's maximum. They like to maximize their return.
Well, thank you so much for all that, Billy. I feel like I just kind of monopolized your time. Feel free to run me
yeah.
off.
It's always great. It's always great. Like, you know, you've actually you in a way you kind of helped structure this stream. I was just jabbering on earlier on. Now I'm in my element. Yeah, but this and you'll see that in terms of like that maximizing returns, because well, one, they're entitled. Two, they got lack of boundaries. So it's like you offer them would you like a slice of cake? And they go, oh, thank you very much. And they just take the entire cake. You're like, what the hell are you doing? I'll fin you a slice. And they're just like, oh, sorry about that. Oh well, screw you. Yum 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 yum. Oh, nice cake. You know, you're like, damn it. Oh no, the example I use is if you offer out sweets and you go, yeah, sure, like, yeah, help yourself. They just take the entire bag, and then they'll turn around and be like, well, you did say help yourself, you know, and there's you saying, but I didn't mean that. So there's almost there, I suppose there is an intentional misinterpretation, because they like to play dumb, as if like, oh, I had no idea I was sucking the blood out of you and you were dying because of what I was doing. Oh, you know, play innocent.
Well, I was working with this one woman, and for whatever reason, she had like an attitude that nobody could get along with. So one thing she liked to do was give people stuff, and she felt like by giving them stuff that she was entitled to not fix her behavior. So is
Okay.
that at all? Is that at all narcissistic behavior, or just an anomaly?
Well, you can't say that purely on that. What you just said, you can't say that's narcissist. It's something a narcissist might do, but you can't kind of make a verdict that you're dealing with a narcissist purely on just that. But yeah, that's you're venturing into the sort of financial kind of abuse or transactional. I mean, they are transactional in their nature. So in terms of they'll buy gifts or they'll give monies or they might do favors with the expectation. Remember, like maximize, like there's got to be some kind of benefit to them, and not just an equal benefit. It's not like I do you a favor, so you owe me a favor. It's I do you a favor, now you owe me your soul. It's like, whoa. So there's disproportionate, and you bet, you know, you can guarantee that it's going to work in their favor. They're going to make sure they benefit the most out of whatever transaction is taking place. So if they give you a simple little token gift, a little knickknack, then they're going to expect, I mean, it could be in the form of like your absolute loyalty until death. It could be a place to live at your house. You know, they give you a little here's a paperweight gift. Right, okay, thank you very much. Okay, can I stay over at your house for the next month? And you're like, what the hell? You know, and then they won't leave after a month. They'll still be there. You know, a year will go by, and then you find out that they're trying to take the title, the land, they're trying to take the property itself from you. You know, and all because of this paperweight present they gave you.
It's a good deal. I've heard the term love bombing. Like I hear that's something narcissists like to do. Is if they feel like they can't get you in their snare, they'll give you a lot of stuff, and then, like you said, expect a lot more.
Yeah, well, and love bombing is very characteristic of that sort of thing. Yeah, they'll be super sweet, super, you know, they give you the best sex ever or whatever. They're an angel and all this sort of stuff, and they sweep you off your feet, and it's a very dangerous. You know, it sounds all nice, love bomb. Who wouldn't like to be love bombed? You know, who wouldn't like to be pampered over on or whatever? Who wouldn't like to have these gifts of affection? Who wouldn't like to be told that they're the most handsome or beautiful woman in the universe. So love bombing is very nice, but you know, and you can see why people get fooled by it, and fall victim to it. But yeah, that's like the praying mantis has got their hooks. That's the fangs of the spider or whatever have been embedded into you at that point. That's really a dangerous situation when you really understand what's going on taking place. That is the prepping you, that's getting you prepared for the abuse that is to come. And when that abuse comes, it'll hurt that much more because you'll be thinking, but I thought she loved me.
Well, let me just throw this out here on you because I think politicians do that a lot. I think it's virtue signaling.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Virtue signaling is part of it. False promises or future faking, that's another part of love bombing. It's like, yeah, look, I promise I'll marry you. And you're like, oh, she's going to marry me. Oh, she's the girl of my dreams. And you're thinking, hang on, we've been together for 12 years. Why aren't we married? And keep you holding on. You're now thinking of the time you were being love bombed, thinking, well, if I endure more torture, I will finally one day be rewarded with that wedding she promised me. But yeah, like the politicians will do the sort of same thing. You know, like we're going to get net zero. We're going to get the emissions down to zero. Is it going to happen? Hell no. Why would it happen?
Well, I mean, the people that tell you to ride a bicycle to work are the same people that have a private jet.
Yeah. And the only time they might make air quote like good on their promise is to either maybe to virtue signal or to later pull the rug out from under you and get you to do something else. You know, because one of the effective ways of you're talking about like breaking a society apart, you know, so it's easier to control them. Well, one of the good ways of doing this would be to make good on some of your fake promises, because it confuses people. It's like if I was to abuse you flat out, just totally abuse you, you would run a mile. But if I'm nice to you every now and again, you'd be like, wow, it really hurt what Billy did to me the other day. But at the same time, he did give me a paperweight, you know. So you're now having this internal battle in your head trying to weigh up the pros and cons. So sometimes
it's kind of a question, or it's a thought I have a lot, is whenever you're trying to influence someone or control someone, it's not so much the act of doing it that's bad, it's the motive behind it. Like, so the altruistic person that's self-actualizing good, he's trying to influence people to make them more empowered and positively self-empowered, I guess is the right word. Where a nihilist is trying to control and dominate people. Would you agree with that?
I'm not sure I'll describe him as a nihilist, because I'm actually going to be covering that topic of nihilism in an upcoming video. But but that's what you're touching on is peeking behind the magician. You're peeking behind you're seeing how the trick operates, which is fantastic, because that is what they don't really want you to be working out. They don't want you to be like figuring out the intention or the motivation or ulterior motive or whatever. They want you to see things on that superficial level as they are presenting it. So think of a magician performing a trick. It's like, look at this hand and do not look at my other hand, which is picking your pocket or do it, you know, otherwise you see how the magic is being done. So smoke and mirrors is another way they describe it as. It's all a stage show.
But you could do, in theory, do the same stuff for good, right?
There are, like, when we say manipulation, we often think of it as a negative word, but it's a neutral word. You know, there are positive forms of manipulation. You know, like go eat your 5 fruit and veg a day. Yeah, it's good for you. You know, so there are positive ways people can be manipulated. But in terms of, like you said, altruism, you know, you can argue. This is where it gets a little bit tricky, and you need to be discerning. And typically, you need to see a progression of time needs to elapse so that you can kind of put together a cluster of behaviors to then make an assessment. So the communal narcissist, for example, is very, very charitable. You know, they are all about love, peace, and harmony. And, hey, everyone, we should all work together and stop fighting. And how can you argue with that? And this is where you need to work out: are they saying it because this is a decent person and they're you know they're upfront with what they're saying it, or is it the chameleon using the words to sound convincing when really they want people maybe to get along, so that it's kind of like herding the sheep closer together? So you gotta have that discernment. You want to be able to spot some indicators and other kind of elements that give you a better prediction of what is actually transpiring.
So Shinobi Wan, he's saying, I'm motivated to lie about Santa to the boy because it's a lesson in belief. Kind of makes me wonder, do politicians treat us the same way? Do they just overtly lie about stuff that they don't even believe?
Yeah, I mean, it gets to a point where they start believing their own lies. It becomes multifaceted and like multi-leveled. It can become quite complex, I suppose, is the easiest way of putting it. You know, are they doing it for their own self-gain? Are they doing it because they're trying to win political power? Are they trying to do it because of, they're being puppeted by someone else? Have they got some other kind of agenda going on? Is it some sort of lucrative business deal they got with pharmaceutical companies, and that's why they're doing this or whatever? Is there personal problems going on? Are they trying to do some tax avoidance or something like this? Is this meant to be their legacy or something like that? Is this their way of fame? Is this all about just simply controlling people? And it's probably a mixture of all of that, really.
Well, I heard in the old days when the powers that be were trying to consolidate power, they came up with the idea of communism. The state owns absolutely everything. But it failed so bad and they killed so many people trying to get it to work. No majority around the world wants that. So now the new push to consolidate power is climate change. So I'm not entirely sure they believe it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have private jets flying around the world trying to tell us we need to get to ride bicycles to work.
Well, when you break it down to that kind of core level, like we were talking about before, where it's like the lava underneath the Earth's crust, and where it's all stemming from. So stemming from control and survivability. Then you can look at this. You can look at Marxism, and you can compare that with what was the example you used? Like eco activism, was it?
Climate change.
Climate change. Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Like environmental. You'll probably start to see that. Hang on, this is the same candy, but with a different wrapper. It's the same lie, but just with a different sugar coating on it.
And it's a little bit more honest because when they consolidate power, it's going to be incredibly inefficient and it's going to amplify poverty. But before they gave the lie saying that that's not going to happen, your life will improve. And then when everyone figured that out, 100 years later, 100 million people murdered later or starved to death, then the new lie is you have to impoverish yourself. Otherwise, you'll destroy the planet.
Yeah. And so you've got elements of like moving the goalpost, but it gets to a point where, see, like you can keep track of it and you can be like, hang on, yesterday you said this, today you're saying that, and tomorrow you're saying something else. This doesn't align. There's a mismatch here. But for the average person, like mass of society, they've got now, unfortunately, they've got no memory anymore. They've been so bombarded and disorientated, they don't even know which way is up or down. They need, now this is where that codependence, like they've been so brainwashed and destabilized. They are reliant on the government to tell them, or whoever it is, the power, the elite, or whoever, to tell them what day of the week it is.
Very true. I mean, I remember trying to have educated conversations with people, and the TV believers, it didn't matter what I told them. Like, I wasn't Fauci, I wasn't the government, I didn't have a PhD next to my name,
Yeah.
and everything I showed them just didn't matter.
I mean, this is why it can be so like jaw dropping from our perspective, because it's like, guys, don't you? They said the opposite yesterday. Like, don't you remember? And they simply can't because they're so discombobulated, and so like because when there's insecurity and destabilization, then your survival instincts get heightened. You become more so you become more impulsive. You don't really have a memory at that point, so they simply can't really remember. They're just going with the flow, hoping that they're going to survive. They don't really care what. So, and then the predators, the elites, I don't know if they're aware of it. Maybe on one hand they are, but also on another hand, they get a bit sloppy in their, like the sophistication of their manipulation kind of gets sloppy, and they can after a while be kind of like blatant with lying to people, and the people will still just lap it up. That's a very dire situation, and that's the kind of direction we're going in, where they don't even really need to hide it anymore. The people, and you can almost sort of say like, well, can you really blame the elites if people are going to be so complacent and neglectful with their self-care and not have any self-respect or self-worth to really challenge any of this? Maybe, not to sound too unsympathetic, but maybe they deserve it. If society collapses and everything crumbles, maybe it's something we as a people deserve to happen because we didn't really we let it happen.
Well, I've heard some religious people talk about the cabal, and they said, like, God can't really intervene when they tell you you will own nothing and you will be happy. I mean, you can't really go to God and saying they're lying to you. They're telling you what they're going to do before they do it.
You might find this interesting. So if we use an example from the narcissistic framework or whatever, I don't know if you're familiar with the way they describe the victims as like a primary source or supply. So you might have husband and wife. Let's say the wife is the narcissist. So the husband is a primary source, typically, because he's so direct. He's close proximity. He's a primary. Now, if she has a love affair, that's a secondary source. Now, quite often, the primary gets depleted. Maybe the primary figures what's going on and decides to leave, but she now becomes reliant on the secondary, the backup supply to feed her, to fuel her. And the primary quite often wants to warn the secondary and be like, hey dude, I know, all right, we might not get along, but hey, you're in danger. This happens also with white knights. You might try and warn a white knight. It's like, hey, you're being used here, you're being manipulated, like wake up, I'm trying to help you. And the thing is, if they are in that, really what's happening is that the secondary or the white knight is already in a state of psychosis. They're in a delusion, a shared fantasy with the narcissist. So you as an outsider trying to warn them, trying to break this illusion, is not what they want. So they will turn on you instead of the narcissist. And if anything, they will defend the narcissist, because the narcissist is promising them sanctuary. It's promising them utopia. It's like, I am the love of your life. Be with me. Ooh, la, So they're being wooed and mesmerized and idolized and love bombed. And this is bliss. This is a drug. They're in ecstasy. And there's you as an outsider saying, no, you're being they're going to tell you to F off. So you trying to help them, or on a societal level, if we try and help these people wake up, if we're not careful, we push them further into the delusion and into the arms of their abuser.
Fascinating.
It's the opposite intention of what we want to happen. We're trying to set them free, but inadvertently, in doing so, we seal the deal for their fate. They won't abandon their abuser, because their abuser is the person who is promising them security.
So I have run into something like that. There was a narcissistic woman that was verbally abusing me, and I would just fight back. I would say, well, you want to give me the God's honest truth, I'll give you the God's honest truth. And then the men that would just totally let her run amok would shame me for standing up to her. And then I would turn on them and say, you're going to let her talk that way to me, but then you're going to attack me for returning that back on her. But I do see what you're saying on a political sense to people that are being brainwashed. Like, you would try to give them the truth and they would make fun of you in your face. It was a very weird time to be alive.
This becomes trauma bonding. So have you heard of Stockholm syndrome?
I have.
Yeah, so that's basically what will start to happen.
So I guess Stockholm syndrome, for those that don't know, I think there was a hostage situation, and the hostages actually had empathy for the person that was holding a gun to them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because the narcissist will turn around and be like, I'm being bullied. I'm the victim in all this. So the white knight is like, I'll come and save you, my princess. I'll defend. I'll ward off the intruder. And they look at you as someone who wants to spoil the party, or you're jealous, or you're an arsehole or something like that, and they turn on you. So, meanwhile, the narcissist is like rubbing their hands like, yes, do my bidding.
So you probably know a lot about this better than I do, but what I thought before this conversation was that the men that should have stand up to the woman that was out of control being abusive, they realized they weren't the man they should have been. So when they saw me be the man they failed to be, I think they hated the decision they made. And by attacking me and tearing me down and emasculating me, I thought they felt better about them being emasculated.
That is, yes, that is correct. There is that part of it as well. Yeah, that's actually you're getting into the deeper aspect. If I actually covered some of what you're saying here and this part of the conversation in a stream, one of my previous streams not that long ago, discusses this dynamic. I've forgotten the title of it, but I can't. Either like the participation of white, it's to do with what we're talking about basically. But yeah, there is. You see, you got a set of characteristics going on with the narcissist, as demonic or evil as you might want to think of them, and and they've got their needs and their way of going about things. But you've also got the another sort of like Pandora's box of problems for the codependent white knight as well. And this is why it's so once the two worlds meet, it makes the situation very hard to separate. That's in part is why it becomes a shared psychosis, shared delusion. They live in this world together, and they both become dependent upon one another. And you trying to disrupt this and rip this person away to try and wake them up, you are not only like an infidel for doing so, but like you say, you are highlighting the deficits in the codependent.
So whenever I would go around trying to red pill someone on a lot of the political stuff that's my opinion, I noticed that I could get my facts together. I could be logical and rational, but that didn't matter because they had a different tool, and that tool was their ego, whether it's inflated in delusional land or it's broken and dependent on someone else's ego. That was the problem. And the only thing you could do with that was wait until like their Maslow hierarchy of needs comes crashing down and they're trying to repiece together their ego. That's the opportunity to actually give them their red pill, is when they're having to eat a crap sandwich.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, you got what they call the ego death. Yeah. So, and that's another problem of this twisted relationship thing that they got going, is that during all of this, there is no real sense of self actually there. What you have is ego interacting with ego. These aren't really people at this point, which makes it more quirky in a way. It's like it's almost esoterical the way it's sort of making it sound. But
So here's the problem with that. The way I look at Billy is someone's psyche is based on their ego. It's almost like talking to them is just a pointless exercise.
yeah, because who are you talking to? Are you talking to them, the sense of self, the person, or are you talking to the ego?
Well, the ego is like a mountain. It's not going to move. Like it's going to get torn down when their Maslow hierarchy of needs is utterly shattered.
Yeah, but the ego, they call it ego defenses. They'll kick in, and this ego will not allow you itself to be overthrown. Typically, it's the child tyrant that will never surrender. It's easy. Like you come at them with logic, and they can just flat out deny it. You can have all the evidence in the world and be like, "Look, I caught you red-handed. I can see you've got crumbs on your face. I know you put your hand in the cookie jar," and they can just turn around and simply say, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." What are you going to do?
Fascinating. So this lying deal, like, how unhealthy is lying? Because I heard Jordan Peterson saying, like, don't do white lies, don't do any lies. It'll screw your brain up. What's he talking about there? I guess lying to yourself is reinforcing your ego, where you can't face reality, logic, or facts.
Well, I'm not sure what the Jordan Peterson segment you're talking about. That would probably help for a bit better context. But in general speak, yeah, like just what you're saying, like lying, having a lying characteristic. In general kind of practice, I don't think it's very beneficial, because you in the end you'll basically start lying to yourself and you become delusional. When you can have brutal honesty, then you can have authenticity, then reality. See, the expression like the truth hurts. Why does the truth hurt? Because the truth is tied into reality. Reality is truth. Fantasy is the lie. And lies or fantasy doesn't hurt you at all, because fantasy is very soothing. It's whimsical. It makes you feel gooey inside or whatever. It's magical. Fantasy is magical. It makes you feel ooh, special. So lying feels good, but being honest and telling the truth hurts, at least initially. But if you go through life with this being practiced with honesty and truth, then it's not going to hurt you anymore. You're kind of you toughen up. You realize that, well, it depends on the kind of person. If they're willing to face, if they're willing to go through that pain, to have that truth, then they'll be able to endure it. So you can also say, in a way, that lying and this idea of escaping in fantasy is to escape pain. It's like life hurts me so much that the only way I can deal with life is if I escape it through my delusion. So I'm not. So my mind is not in this. So this is why with narcissists, they are living in a fantasy. They cannot be hurt. You can't hurt a narcissist. I don't care if these people that want to try and say they cause a narcissistic injury. You don't, because the narcissist has escaped reality. They've gone to a place that you can't get them.
Well, let me just give you like a practical example. Let's say the government is going to do some depopulation, and they're going to call it a government sanctioned shower, and it's a gas chamber, and your best friend's wanting to go into that gas chamber, and they're 100% trusting and believing the government. Is there anything you can tell that person before they walk into it?
Pick up the soap. Not really. This is the tricky part, in a way, because it's how do you want to deal with this situation? There kind of comes a point where you, as an outsider trying to help, you've got compassion, you've got empathy, you don't want to see what might, you worry about them, but you got to also take care of yourself and have your own self-care. So if it gets to a point where there's nothing you can really do, and you yourself have to walk away and allow them to endure the torture or the pain or execution even, then unfortunately, as cruel as it might sound, you might have to turn your back on them. There's different ways you can look at this. Like if someone is drowning, you got to be careful they don't pull you down with them and kill you in the process. Now, what you can have is, you got to be a bit careful with hope, but you can kind of keep your fingers crossed that hopefully one day they will realize for themselves and scramble for freedom, and at which point, if they do that, then that's when really you'd be your most beneficial help to them, as support. You cannot save them. They must save themselves. They have to have that desire and willpower to want to save themselves. So it's sad. It's quite a tragic thing. Yeah, like you might have to walk away from it. Here's a real painful example. You got a husband, wife, and they got children, and the kid, the wife, to say the wife is the abuser, and the kid, you're trying to co-parent with this kid, so the kid's time is being split between a healthy parent and an unhealthy parent. That can cause far more damage than just turning your back on the kid and letting the kid live with the toxic parent. Why? Because by having two parents of different stature, one being healthy, one being the opposite, like toxic, this screws up the kid's brain. It splits them, it divides them into two. They can't be a complete person if they split in two. Half of them is saying that they're good and gives them love, the other half is giving them abuse. So this destroys the kid completely, absolutely annihilates the kid. So it's much more kinder, as crazy as this might sound, is and painful as this sounds, is if you're the healthy parent, you might make the decision where it's like, I can't do this co-parent. I'm going to have to walk away and turn my back on my own kid. And in doing so, that means what? That means the kid spends all their time with the toxic parent. Seems like that would be worse. But there's a better chance that what will happen is that this kid will have a realization that this isn't right. And hopefully, they might have to endure a couple of years of growing, but as they get older, that they'll know that this isn't right. So that will kind of ignite the curiosity and get them out of there. They'll be more likely to escape the abuse because they're so exposed. They're exposed completely to it. Does that make sense? Like if you were co-parenting with some healthiness being introduced, what you're also doing is that kid is learning to be conditioned. They're learning that, I can be abused for some of my time and I can be looked after the other time with my other parent. So they will endure and build up a tolerance to the abuse. They won't rebel against the abuse because, well, it's all right if mom abuses me because next weekend I'm going to be with dad. You see what I'm saying there? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, there's a biblical example of that. So in the book of Revelation, Jesus is talking to a church called Laodicea, and they were somewhat good, somewhat bad. And Jesus said, this is not useful to me. I'd rather you be bad or good, but this in-between state is not going to work out. But the problem I see with that is if you go all the way bad, you can sometimes, and this is the problem with the West, you can lose track of what good is. And that's see, originally when the West started making some really stupid bad decisions, I wasn't too concerned because I thought they were all going to get red pilled and they realized in a hurry, this isn't going to work. We're going to destroy ourselves. But the very worst possible thing could happen that they got the results and then they pretended those results weren't bad, or they blamed someone unrelated to the problem. So I do foresee putting someone in a horrible situation might not be like a bounce wake up call. Sometimes it can be so darkened you don't see a way the exit out.
It's a terrible situation to find yourself in because, I mean, another reason why it might be better to just allow the child to be fully exposed to the abuse is because the healthier parent cannot, we say co-parent as if it's like cooperative parenting, but it's counter parenting. The healthy parent has to kind of like clean up the mess that the toxic one is doing. So as a result, as well as much as they might try to be a good parent, they're being undermined at the same time. So they're not really functioning in full capacity. So not only is it a situation of like, what can the kid deal with, but you've got to kind of factor in what can the healthy parent deal with. So it's a kind of case by case situation, and there is no real right answer. It's kind of down to the people involved and what they can manage and deal with, and what is available, like in terms of like awareness. Like, do they realize what's going on? Like in my situation, I knew I couldn't co-parent at all, so it was either the kid stays with me or the kid stays with her. And I thought, no way is my kid staying with her. So decision, as far as I'm concerned, the decision is made. Kid stays with me, and it's going to be 100%. And that's how I derive my answer for my situation.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. So having the kid go from an abusive person to a competent parent, I I would imagine the child would have some major issues where if you try to discipline the child, it would just run back to the other parent, and that would be very counterproductive because that
Well,
would
yeah, you've got alienation, isn't it? Parental alienation, where like the one parent is bad mouthing to the kid about the other one, maybe telling lies, and it just becomes so convoluted and distorted and perverted. Maybe not necessarily sexually, but like like just in terms of ridiculously kind of. It's a nightmare, and there are loads of men, loads of kids going through that, and that's another tragedy in of itself. Like how sad to say, like how commonplace it is, where to what degree? I mean, that's quite that's another question, but it almost doesn't matter. Like the fact, like if there is shenanigans going on, that's already crossing the line. Like no wonder we've got no wonder our generation is messed up, and no wonder like the generation of kids now are in jeopardy. It's almost like the idea of having two healthy parents and a healthy kid is unattainable. It almost sounds like there must be something not quite right in this picture. It sounds too perfect. Nothing's perfect. Like someone's not. This isn't. Yeah. This is. They must be from out of town.
Well, I mean, if you think about human beings, if you believe we are literally a million years old or however many million thousands of years old, one thing everyone should agree on is we were made for a Stone Age life. So if you think about like a Stone Age person, every Stone Age person lived in a matriarchal society with a mom and a dad, with a tribe of people that were their own race. They had like their own belief system. They had a job to do. Um, they were a community, and now like everything is just being chipped away one by one by one.
Mhm.
And I dare say like nobody knows what this is going to turn into, but it's probably not going to be good because we weren't evolved for that environment.
No, and if you also consider like how like a million years ago, evolution was sort of slow paced in comparison to like now. I mean, look how much stuff has changed in the last 20 years. So in a way, in terms of like people becoming disorientated and they don't know how to navigate life, and as a result they have a lack of security, so they go survivalistic mode. You can almost, never mind psychological disorders, that aside, the rapid changes in society alone would be enough to make your head spin.
And no one's really talking about it. Like with the AI and the robotic revolution right around the corner, like everyone might literally be unemployed, getting a check from the government to do nothing. I mean, that terrifies me. That absolutely terrifies me.
Well, yeah, we had this scheme over here called the furlough scheme. So the government was paying, like during the COVID, 2020 sort of, not long ago, really, they were paying people to not go to jobs or go to work. And of course, the people were like, "Oh, this is fantastic! I'm getting paid basically to do nothing." And now we've got hyperinflation, and they're all like, "Oh, we want to strike because we want our wages to go up." And it's like, you greedy SOBs, don't you see the problem here? You're making it worse. But of course, they don't see what's going on. They don't-
Problem is people are
Oh.
so incredibly stupid and uneducated. Like they think magic money can be printed and there's no harmful effect. And I've been telling people for 20 years, inflation's a big deal. This debt
Yeah.
problem's a problem.
Right.
Well, now people are starting to see it and feel it, but they still don't know what's going on.
They think the solution is to print more. And it's just like, this is absurd. I mean, you funny you say like a lack of education, because the last strike we had was on Wednesday, like 2 days ago. It was the teachers' strike, the biggest strike ever, or something. It's like, oh my god, the school. They don't realize, we've already got like a centralized, well, they're trying to like have online classes. They're basically gonna lose their jobs. They're gonna shut the schools down, and don't realize it.
So you're English, right, Billy?
Yeah.
So you probably get this better than most people, but the dollar in America used to be based on gold. I imagine the British pound used to be the same thing. So if you had the ability, say you were God and you just could double the gold reserve in the world, it would just mean the prices would double, right?
Well, I'm no financial expert. You could talk to Iridium Kush and Bandit about that. Maybe some of the other gentlemen might know as well, but I don't know. I mean, I think the solution is that people should stop having credit and spending above their means. I was raised to, if I don't have the money, then I don't buy the thing. I don't get any credit. You get what you have the money for. So I don't have any debt as a result. And if I want to buy something, then I've got to kind of make sacrifices and like save money. I had to stop stop buying takeaway or something like that. So, but this is the thing. People don't seem to want to make sacrifices because of this entitlement. They just want gimme, gimme, gimme. I want to still keep everything, and this is the problem. And they buy things in installment. I always avoid. I pay in full. If I want something, I pay for it in full. I save. I'll wait for it, and I'll save up for it. Maybe I might wait till it's on sale or something like that, or find a bargain. But the point is that I will wait and I'll pay for it in full, and not. But I know plenty of people that pay installments, and to me this is bonkers. But that's what they want to. That's how they want to do it, I suppose.
Yeah, it's instant gratification. It's basically enslavement. And I tell people the secret to being rich is to live like you're poor while making money for a couple of decades, and then lo and behold, you'll be rich.
That's it. Yeah. Like you don't necessarily have to be a minimalist, but it's like maybe downgrade. Like don't have to like buy your. Don't have to, if you want to buy a bag, you don't have to buy a Gucci bag or whatever. Just buy a bloody cheap thrift store or whatever, charity shop kind of bag or something, or make do with what you've got. Like I had this philosophy. This point was made. I try and remind myself fairly regular, which is you already have everything that you need. And that's served me well. I believe anyway, like in terms of doing some DIY around the house, I might be like, oh, I could do with buying some new tools, and then I'll look around and be like, no, I think I can do this job with the tools I've already got. I just need to be a bit smarter about it.
Yeah, definitely. One problem I see is like whenever someone starts a business, like if you can't manage your finances well, that's going to be just another problem multiplied by 2 when you start a business. Like you really need to know how to manage your finances before you do anything.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because you got what do they call it, like accountants, and I was literally like last week, well, 4 days ago, filed away my tax return. Plenty of people will get an accountant to do that, and that's kind of good money for them. But I do my own accounting, so I don't need to pay anyone for it. It's free.
Yeah, I do a lot of stuff around the house. In the West, your labor is the most expensive thing. So the more stuff you can do for yourself, you can save a lot of money.
It's also a peace of mind as well because, like, if I do it myself, then I know my figures, I know my dates, I got my receipts, and I know I'm filling it in to what I believe is correct. I think I'm doing it right. Whereas if I leave it in the hands of someone else, I don't really know if they're doing it right.
Very true. So I like to do some carpentry around my house, and it's getting to be, beautiful, beautiful wainscoting and Victorian style carpentry work is getting to be
Yeah,
like a dying thing because this modern, greedy, slop it together, cheap McMansions. So you just about can't find a carpenter to make anything beautiful anymore. And if you pay someone to do it, they're just going to slop it together and move on to the next job.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, we call them like cowboy builders, and I've had my family's had a share of those to do work, and if I could do it myself, I'll do it myself. I'm one of them stubborn kind of people. I'm self reliant as much as I possibly can be. So I just do not like having to put faith in other people to do jobs for me. Like same with the car. Like I'd rather do my own repairs than trust. And there's been time, I've taken a car down to a garage. I can't remember what the job was, but they took the front wheel off. Um, I get the car back. I drive away, and something doesn't. You get that kind of spider sense, like something doesn't feel right. It's making a bit of a clunky noise or something like that. So I go to the wheel they took off, and I look at it, and they've put on the lug nuts backwards. So they were only half because you know that the lug nuts are tapered. Well, I
Yeah.
don't know. They're all tapered. They're usually tapered anyway. So the tapered part was on the outside. It wasn't pointing towards the rim. Um, so so only half the bolt was actually threaded on. So no wonder my wheels were like I was getting this kind of weird feeling. My wheel was only half bolted on, and this is a garage. They're meant to be professionals. I mean, what kind of mistake is that?
Well, you sound like me 2 months ago. I paid someone money to replace my brake pads because I didn't have the time to do it, thinking they would do it right and do it fast and professional. They didn't put this wiring harness on and it disconnected the anti lock brake system.
All right,
Then
yeah,
I had to turn around and pay someone money to fix that.
yeah, yeah. And now, did it trigger off a brake light? The ABS on the cluster on the instrument panel.
Yeah, it was a warning system basically saying for your safety the anti-lock brake system has been disengaged. So
Yeah,
fortunately my stepfather-in-law could look at that and be like, yeah, those idiots, they didn't know what they were doing.
yeah. I mean, I get it. Like sometimes mistakes, like they can be overlooked, but still, like something like a car, you'd hope they bloody do it right. It's almost on the level of like you have a surgery and they've left a scalpel inside the patient or something, stitch them back up, and it's like, oh my god, what the hell?
Yeah, I try to be patient with people, but you would think a garage, if they had someone new on working that wasn't experienced, there should be a gray-haired person looking over his shoulder
Yeah,
to make sure it was done at the very end. So yeah, you learn.
yeah, and you know, like something like a garage, like you because you go there every so often, you start building a rapport with them, so whether or not you can trust them. It took me a good while before I found a reputable uh, company that I could trust my car with.
So a couple people talking about the government. Ping one, our government and press have been weaponized against us. I think that's very true. That's what
Yeah,
I believe is the cabal matrix.
not just the press, but media, any like information, data. These are all avenues of control.
And silver bullet, never trust government. As you well know, they turn on the very people they're meant to govern. Peaceful govern at that, well, to a point. Yeah, I think there's something about government to where the powers that be, like if you aspire to be in a position over the entire country, you're probably not a normal person, and you're probably not a good person. Maybe in the past it was different, but it seems like these days the most evil, corrupt people go to the top and stay there.
It does seem like that. We can kind of back up the claim with the psychology in the sense that as the abusive person gets older, like narcissists, and typically all of them, all these kind of disorders, because they are because they are in by definition a disorder. They are going untreated, unchecked, etc. They get worse as they get older, and worse in a spectacular way. Until in the end, like they don't care. They don't even try and hide it anymore, or like they say, you got to respect your elders. I mean, that's one thing, but sometimes you get these elderly people that are just so abusive, and it's hard to. You still try and maintain some respect towards them, but I don't know, like you start to see like how bad they're spiraling out of control, and how much more there's a element of regression, so they become more childish as well. And children, especially when they're very, very young, like if we're honest, they could be little monsters. They could be absolutely like little devils sometimes that people call them.
It's a fascinating concept to me. So when you are young, it does seem like who you are, whatever your psyche is, it's more malleable. So if there's a problem there, and you know it needs to go, and you can't give it up. I do see, as you get less malleable, you just say, "This is who I am. Everyone, get ready to deal with it."
Well, when you're born, we're all little narcissists when we're born. So you can't really give a diagnosis of narcissism to children. Same with psychopathy. And there's been the comparison that children display very psychopathic tendencies, especially as they're kind of approaching the sort of teenager years. And the reason why you can't give these kids you can't diagnose them, is because their brain is still developing. So only until, well, they say 18, when they're like legally an adult, you can diagnose them. But even then, they say like the brain doesn't fully form until the age of 25. But so then the question is like, well, why is it then we're waiting on this brain development to determine whether or not this person is actually a narcissist or a psychopath or whatever? And that's because the prefrontal cortex, the front of the brain where your forehead is the last part. I believe it's the last part to develop, and that is where your decision making comes in. That's where like your ethics and your morals start to develop. So because children don't have this, they don't really understand what morals are. They don't really have a governor or self-restraint accessible or available to them. And so this is why kids can't, I mean, they might know right from wrong, but they still can't help themselves. It's because they don't have that self-control. Their brains aren't developed enough to be able to do that.
So that prefrontal cortex, that's highly important to my spiritual model that I built, that I have developed. So that's actually, correct me if I'm wrong, extremely unique to Homo sapiens. I don't think any other animal has a prefrontal cortex like we do.
I'm not too sure. I'll have to look into that. I think overall, well, I think it's kind of given that our brains are very different to animals in general.
So I was watching a video on this psychopath, and it was a kid, and he got in trouble. And the interviewer said, "Well, what kind of consequence did you get?" And he said, "I got grounded for like 6 months or whatever." And then the interviewer said, "Well, I bet you'll never think about doing that again." And the guy just didn't pause. The kid didn't pause, just without any hesitation said, "Yeah, I'll do it again." And what the psychologist said, that kid will probably be a psychopath growing up. So
Right.
what was that all about? Did I miss something?
There's this question that comes up like, are psychopaths born like that, or is it a nature versus nurture, or is it like their environmental factors? And from brain scans, it does seem to suggest that the wiring in the psychopath's brain is abnormal. There is actually a physical difference to a healthy brain, whereas like a sociopath, apparently accordingly or whatever, their brain is wired typically like how you would expect a brain to be wired, which suggests that for a sociopath, it's much more environmentally created, but psychopaths are more tend to be born with genetics factoring in much more. But in terms of disorder in general, again, like trauma will stunt emotional development. So although the body might age into an adult, the mind, and this is why like you deal with a narcissist, they're very childish in their ways. Their brain hasn't really gone and it hasn't really matured at all. All that's really matured, or not really matured, but all that's really had time to exist and become more prevalent is their ego. Their ego has gotten older.
Fascinating.
And that's another thing to point out is that when not only are you born a narcissist, but your ego is much older than your sense of self. You were born with an ego. Your ego has been in existence longer than you as a actualized person has.
That is extremely fascinating to me. It's almost like it's a predestination thing where like you existed before you even lived your life, started living your life.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of overlook it. It's like we sort of like I'm now 40 years old, so we kind of sort of say to ourselves like, oh yeah, I'm 40 through and through. All of me is 40, and it's like that's not quite true, because every day cells die and new cells are born. So I'm not sure what portions of the body, but I'm just going to be a bit silly here and just say like, let's say like you got more cells to replace in your leg than you do in your little finger. So your little finger is younger in a way than your leg is.
Interesting.
The different parts of your body have different ages. And there's no reason why that same thing would apply to your brain as well. Like there are different areas of your brain which are some areas are dying and some areas are being born. So it's not in unit. It's not all in one go. Things are at different paces.
Well, for whatever reason, like in spirituality, they really encourage fasting. And the ancient Romans believed that someone was demon possessed, that you needed to lock them in a room without any food and they would get healed from it. So they found out later that what's going on is the disease cells in your body are dying off quicker and the healthy cells are being preserved. And that's somehow causing a multitude of really, really good things for your mental health, anti-cancer, longevity, anti-aging. So I have to think about that. That's a fascinating concept to me.
Yeah, yeah. Medical. There's a lot of things that factor into how you feel mood, and how you feel, and in turn how you behave and react and respond to things. Like you know what, being hangry. Like you're angry because you're hungry. So if you get some food, then you'll stop being angry. Now you might end up, if you're in an angry state, you might end up committing a crime. Like you might go beat someone up or something like that, and then it turns out it was all because you were hungry.
Yeah, if you ever had to stress your boss out or ask for a raise or anything, try to schedule it right after lunch. That's a good business advice I got for everyone.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Look, we've hit the 3-hour mark, so I'm gonna close up this stream. If that's all right with you.
That's
True Van
fine.
Code.
Thanks
I've had a
for
great-
entertaining my incessant thinking.
No, I've had a great time chatting with you and everyone else here. You like I said before, like you kind of you got it onto a coherent track because it was a complete sandstorm earlier. To all my doing, I'm my fault for all of that, not having a game plan or whatever. But yeah.
Well, let me rein you in, Billy, and say, when's your next stream for your audience?
Well, hopefully not too far in the future. I'll be uploading a video within the next sort of day or so, and hopefully maybe a couple of days after that, I'll be probably hosting up another stream. So maybe if I can get 2 streams in a week, I think that'd be pretty good. I don't really have a regular schedule, so I usually do my streams just on the fly, like short notice. But hopefully that will start to change.
And PayPal, like, do you have a PayPal link?
I do. It should be in the description. Well, thank you for plugging it. Like you guys are plugging in my PayPal. Like I feel like it's making me kind of blush. Yeah, there is a PayPal. I don't have a WhatsApp thing. Sorry about that, but yeah, if you feel like you want to donate, or someone, whoever wants to donate, then thank you very much from the bottom of my heart and the corners of my soul or whatever, and really hugely appreciative. Don't feel like you have to. I feel guilty. Your presence and having these conversations and questions and topics and all these interactions is already a reward in of itself. So I thank you all for being here. Okay, so let's close this off. And do you have any? I was just about to ask you. Well, Truth Anchor, if you have any final words, Okay, I think Iridium Kush might be stream. He might have already started. If not, maybe you guys will head over there. So thank you again. Thank you to the guests. Thank you to the people on the panel. And take care. And we'll see you all again soon.